In his time of reign, he was reputed to be the devil sitting on his throne in Matthews Lane, the pit of hell, beating people, torturing them, shooting and using his reproductive organ to inflict humiliation and shame upon his victims. In Jamaican terminology, he was branded as a fish and a cradle robber. People feared him, and the residents of Matthews Lane worshipped the very ground he walked on. His name is Donald Phipps, popularly known as Zeeks, the once infamous Iradan from Matthews Lane in downtown Kingston, who is aligned to the political People's National Party. He was rumored to be a gangster extortionist with his army of young foot soldiers. He loves money more than life itself and uses his wholesale business as a legitimate way to hide the illicit extortion money that he extorted from the commercial district in downtown Kingston. It was reiterated by many who knew him that he was addicted to the white powder combined with ganja, and when he induces these mixed drugs, his behavior became erratic and crazy, where he displayed his power of Zeeks, all high and mighty. Let me divulge a little more about the formative years of Donald Zeeks Phipps to see if we can understand this twisted tyrant of a man. From my research, I found out that Zeeks was the seventh child of 7 children of his parents, and he was born in the year 1957. His mother's name is Leonie Cummins, and she is very much alive and living overseas. As a child growing up, it was said Zeeks had a scrawny look and acted more like a wimp. He was spoiled because he had his older siblings who were well known to their link to notorious criminal activities to protect him, particularly his older brother Glenford Earlybird Phipps, whom Zeeks emulated in his footsteps. Zeeks' older brother Earlybird was who we would consider the 70s and 80s Jamaican badman. Back in those days, they attached the collective noun posse in the name of their criminal organization. The Spangler Posse was associated with Earlybird Phipps. The posse's key function was to trade ganja and cocaine locally and overseas. It is public knowledge that Earlybird was the branch leader for the Spangler Posse, who was based in New York. I am not sure under the circumstances that he ended up back in Jamaica, becoming the Don for Matthews Lane, with strong political ties to the People's National Party. In those days, he was the boss of his criminal enterprise of extortion, contract killings, robbery, and selling marijuana and cocaine. Somehow his connections to the politicians landed him the position as supervisor for the Metropolitan Parks and Markets in Kingston, a position he used for a business hub, which enhances his criminal empire. On July 15, 1990, Glenford Earlybird Phipps became a victim of the very same dangerous business he was in. He was brutally shot to death.
62, me was 10-year old.
Yeah.
I'm born 1952.
Right.
Yeah. So me was 10 them time there. You see, I move around with the man them as little youth. Same so Earlybird too. Zeeks, because me and the man them kinda in a same age bracket. You know?
Right.
You understand me? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe me all say 3-year-old more as my man them and them kind of age.
Right.
But the whole of we come from little youth and the boat there. So.
True.
Go school. Go. Not a joke set of youth them, you know. Them not play.
True.
When it come on to certain things.
Right.
You see, them defend them place right down to the bone.
Yeah.
You see, them no matter where what happen. Them are defend it. That's even I could have there so today and stand and I go and reason about certain things. You see me show you? Yeah.
We like how you say defend and not cause trouble. And just defend.
Yeah.
Right. That is.
Always depend them defense with certain things.
Right.
You see?
Right.
Yeah. And see that the people them alright in them community. You know, see, and give the people them food and deal with situation.
The Phipps family was like the underground royal family of Matthews Lane. So when Early Bird died, Zeeks was next in line to take up the position of Don for the ghetto community of Matthews Lane. A position that makes him start believing he was the royal magistrate, the king of Matthews Lane and downtown Kingston, the once wimpy boy who was living in his brother's shadow, now had the resources and power to rule with an iron fist in making his name be respected and feared. He became the judge, juror, and executioner. It is alleged from 1990 to the time of his incarceration, Zeeks took on the mantle of intimidating the business community of downtown Kingston to pay a fee for protection, and those who didn't comply would have their business place broken into, burned to the ground, and the ultimate consequences would be death. It is alleged that Zeeks uses full authority as a Don to send out his foot soldiers to collect extortion money, commit contract killings, and rob business places. He was so selfish and unkind. He did not share the proceeds of the extortion money with his foot soldiers, as was confirmed by an alleged ex-member of his gang who shared his experience with Wayne Lonesome.
To the money we want to go around and collect from the people. When we get people from that,
we get the money from that, but I say, man, some little people are fine sending them all 2 barrel of sneakers and barrel of shirt and then sit down pants and then in just issue out what you want and short.
backside. So una have to collect the money from the vendor then. But the
collect the money from the vendor and the wholesale.
And the wholesale them to backside.
And the wholesale, they have to pay up to them too.
Let it be noted that the rumors are that Zeeks' murders were extremely barbaric, beheading, multiple gunshots, buried alive, tied and cast up alive in cement mixtures and tar, decapitated, and body parts placed in plastic bags, then shoved out and anchored for Riverton dump. The ex-gang member also revealed that Zeeks was a twisted, crazy psychopath who used his influential powers as the Don to set up gang members against each other. In that, friends would have to murder their fellow friends from within the gang, and failure to carry out the order would result in their execution. He also revealed that Zeeks had a book with each man's name written down, and from that book, he would form his death list. Zeeks was known to be a serial womanizer with over an estimated 12 baby mothers and 18 children. It was also alleged he was bi, engaging in same-sex relationships, especially with underage Chico. The almighty Don loves to exalt himself to the media, who did many interviews with him in his capacity as the era leader for Matthews Lane, showing off about keeping the community safe and helping single mothers with their children by keeping back-to-school treat. With Zeeks, the then unofficial authority of downtown Kingston, and the alleged crimes he had committed, the police couldn't stick any charges against him, as their evidence was not substantial. So the question was asked, Are these tales an urban legend? However, in the early months of the year of 1998, the public started to see the strongman Zeeks brush with the law when he was detained for 2 days on suspicion of attempted murder, wounding with intent, illegal possession of a gun. His detention resulted in what would be recorded in history as the Zeeks riot, where residents of Matthews Lane blocked the main roads of downtown Kingston with debris and burning tires, demanding the release of Zeeks. You would have thought that these residents genuinely love Zeeks, but that was not the case at all. Many of the protesters were vendors who were threatened and forced by Zeke's gunmen to close their stalls and go protest. If not, there would be dangerous consequences. The police, through a loudspeaker, warned the protesters to clear the streets to regularize the business district, but they wouldn't budge until Zeeks himself made an appearance on the balcony of Central Police Station. He took the loudspeaker and told the protesters he was all right and they should go home. May 5th, 1999, he was charged with destruction of property and 2 counts of assault when 2 men were held and beaten for using the Don's name to extort money in the business community of downtown Kingston. The case was eventually thrown out after witness failed to make an appearance. I assume there were whispers of witness intimidation and fear of their lives. Tivoli Gardens gunmen, who were aligned with the Jamaica Labour Party, had a fierce war with Matthews Lane gunmen over the control of a section of downtown Kingston. It was said that Zeeks initiated the war, crippling the business production in the bustling commercial capital of downtown Kingston. Then again, in 2001, Zeeks was alleged to send gunmen from Matthews Lane to go on a shooting rampage in the community of Tel Aviv for his selfish reasons, all over one of his baby mama who was dating a man from Tel Aviv, which resulted in 7 persons losing their lives. The war was so devastating to the economy that on November 19, 2001, the police called a peace meeting between the 2 warring communities. They invited the era leader Zeeks, but he didn't dignify the lawmen peace meeting by his failure to show up. Again, on October 13, 2004, war broke out in downtown Kingston as a result of a few foot soldiers of Zeeks jumping ship and joining their rival Tivoli Gardens gunmen. Zeeks, boiling anger for those ex-foot soldiers of his, whom he deemed as the worst traitors, quickly sent out his men to have them found and executed. He also hired other contract killers from Spanish Town to take them out, but Tivoli Gardens men put up a good defense in trying to protect those men and their immediate families. However, Zeeks, with the aid of majority of his loyal foot soldiers, managed to murder a family member of one of his ex-foot soldiers. As a consequence, the ex-soldiers, along with Tivoli Gardens gunmen, retaliated by shooting to death a man named Oret Wani, who was said to be involved in the killing of Zeke's ex-soldier's family member. After Wani was shot to death, they shoved his body on an handcart and left it near the Kingston Public Hospital. A few days later, the gunmen stormed into Brown's funeral home and cut off Wani's head and put it on a wooden stake, then shoved a cigarette in the lifeless mouth and attached a message addressed to Zeeks. giving him 48 hours to pack and leave. They then parade the head nearing Matthews Lane for all to see. The rational question must be asked, why would Zeeks' loyal foot soldiers betray him and join the rival team Tivoli Gardens? The reason was a shocking, sinister secret that showed Zeeks' level of psychopathic sickness. The alleged rumor is that one of his foot soldiers, who was returning a gun, caught him in the meat storage room of his wholesale in a compromising act with a street boy. Such man was so frightened he ran out of the room. It is said such man told other gang members who he knew were strictly anti-gay activists, and they decided to flee Matthews Lane and seek alliance and refuge from Tivoli Gardens era leader. They revealed Zeeks' biggest and darkest secrets. That is the reason Tivoli Gardens was the first to label Zeeks as the biggest gangster fish in Jamaica. But many people never took Tivoli Gardens seriously, as they thought they were saying it because they were enemies. That war also again put a closure to downtown Kingston, where the military and police joined to restore order. On October 17, 2004, police raided Zeeks' wholesale in Matthews Lane and found 10 million in cash, ganja, ammunition, and pharmaceutical contrabands. He was subsequently arrested and charged and was offered bail at $1.5 million. Zeeks' love and greed for money make him very paranoid. He doesn't trust the banks to keep his millions of dollars in local currency or foreign currency. So the police raided his house in Avondale, St. Andrew, and again confiscated millions of dollars in local and foreign currency. The police claimed that all those millions of dollars found in Zeeks' house were proceeds from his criminal activities. Time and time again, the police and justice system of Jamaica fail to get any conviction of the criminal charges brought against Zeeks. His then high-profile lawyer at the time, Churchill Nita, was prepared to find the fine print loopholes in sections of the law to defend his seemed to be squeaky clean client. But Zeeks, all high and mighty, continues his reign of brutality until two simple men put an end to his reign of terror, bringing down his kingdom and putting Zeeks and his name to shame. This is Make We Talk channel. Please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section. The narrative is like this. Rodney Ferguson and Kelroy Rashford were from St. Elizabeth. They became very good friends in 1991 when they used to illegally cultivate marijuana and bring it to downtown Kingston to sell at a wholesale level. Dear Rodney met Zeeks, one of his biggest customers. Rodney over the years started to venture off into other businesses, and with his association with Zeeks as the era done, he was given the go-ahead to open a wholesale in Matthews Lane. Rodney diversified into other bigger and more profitable business, which led him to close down the wholesale business in Matthews Lane and move to Harborview, where he went into the bigger business of mining sand for the cement company. Rodney not only was a successful businessman who employed many youths, but he was also the area leader of his community and a PMP activist, and Kelroy was still his best and closest friend. It was said that on the 14th of April at about 9 p.m., Rodney got a call from Zeeks to come see him about some business dealings. So Rodney took one of his employees, a young man named Dayton Williams, otherwise known as Scotchbrite. But before Rodney left, he told his close associates if he didn't return, Zeeks would be responsible. At about minutes to midnight, Kelroy, Rodney's friend, was visited by some other friends of Rodney who told him that Rodney seemed to be in trouble. So Kelroy quickly dialed Rodney's number. At first it rang, then went straight to voicemail. He dialed the number again. This time the phone was answered by the voice he recognized as Zeeks. Kelroy said he heard Rodney's voice saying to Zeeks that it was Kelroy. Zeeks told Kelroy that they are holding Rodney, and if he didn't do what he wants, his family is not going to see him again, and he's going to pick out his fingernails and toenails and cut him in pieces. Zeeks gave Rodney the phone, and Rodney told Kelroy to do what Father Zeeks said to do. Zeeks told Kelroy to come down there and bring a man by the name of Tim. When Kelroy asked the reason for him and Tim coming to Matthews Lane, Zeeks angrily told him he didn't have to know. Kelroy said he heard Rodney's voice saying they must make haste before the road gets busy. Then he heard Zeeks' angry voice shouting at Rodney, saying, "You telling them to call police? If police come, a pure gunshot a go fire down here so." Kelroy said he heard Rodney bawling out like someone was beating him. Kelroy had a spooky feeling that Zeeks was out for blood, and there was no way he was going to look for Tim and go to Matthews Lane. Then an idea struck him. A politician living in the area by the name of Oliver Clue, who knew Rodney very well in the capacity as PMP area leader, and had political connections to Zeeks as they were allegiant under the PMP banner. When Kelroy and the other men went to Mr. Clue's residence, he was more than willing to see if he could reason with Zeeks to release Rodney. First, Kelroy called Rodney's phone and put it on speaker. Zeeks answered, inquiring what taking him and Tim so long to reach. Kelroy answered by telling Zeeks he couldn't find Tim. Then Mr. Clue took the phone and identified himself. Zeeks was extremely angry and told Mr. Clue that he should be in bed with his wife instead of inquiring about Rodney. Mr. Clue was taken aback when Zeeks uttered that his DICK was in Rodney's mouth. Mr. Clue was speechless at first. Then he said to Zeeks in a reprimanding tone, "You must be a madman." Then Zeeks Almighty snapped back at Mr. Clue, telling him that he had passed his place and he and his family had to pack and leave Jamaica, and they wouldn't be seeing Rodney again. He hung up, leaving all who were there very speechless. On the 15th of April 2005, at approximately 4 a.m., the burnt body of Rodney Farkinson and Dayton Williams was found in a heap of burning tires on an open piece of land near Matthews Lane in West Kingston. Forensic evidence showed they were shot multiple times before being burnt. That same morning, after the bodies were found, Mr. Oliver Clue and Kelroy Rashford gave statements to the police about the event that transpired in the night leading up to the men's deaths. On May 17, 2005, Zeeks was officially arrested and charged with the double murder of Rodney and Dayton Scotch-Brite. A year later, he was tried and the jurors found him guilty as charged. On the 30th of May, he was sentenced by the judge to life on each count and must serve a maximum of 30 years before he could be eligible for parole. In the trial of the once almighty Zeeks, Mr. Clue's testimony about him having his private parts in Rodney's mouth left a disgraceful stain upon his gangster brand, and his former gang members distancing themselves from him. That was how the rumors of him being the biggest gangster fish in Jamaica's history were confirmed.